This week's Design Chat is brought to you by Mustaches. I'm Ron Burgundy. Also, Pabst Blue Ribbon, because if I say it enough, it might actually come true. And bacon, because bacon. Designer cliches not included. Some production work is required. Hello and welcome to Design Chat, the best live design discussion on the internet. I'm your host, Ryan McGovern. On Twitter, I'm at Hoobajube and at Design Chat. Every once in a while, we get together with some of the coolest people from the design community. Tonight is definitely a cool night to be here if you are here for the live show. We are talking to Mr. TerryMarks, return guest, TerryMarks. Go.
Thanks for having me back.
Thanks for still talking to me.
Why, you've been trashing me behind my back?
No, not that you know of. Wait. Where's my? Not that you know of.
That's good. You know, as my business coach would tell me, other people's opinion of me is none of my business. So.
And keep it that way. Cool. So, yeah. So June 20th, 2010. We had you on, and you at that time were gearing up to be a judge for the STA's Archive 10 that year.
In Chicago. Mm-hmm.
In Chicago, in the Chi-Town, and you came up for the judges night. We got to hang out a little bit. So tell us a little bit about that experience real quick, and your time in Chicago, and seeing the STA kind of and what we do out here, and just your overall opinion.
Well, I have to say, one, it's always an honor to judge something like that, and I'll be honest, I didn't know much about the STA. The materials were kicking. I think it was, who was it, Grip or somebody did that stuff? All the promo materials, really well done. And the judges were great. I mean, Jessica Hish was in town, and Renata and some other people. Knowing that this is an archive that's been going on for decades, and so it's being kind of put into the vault of the best. It actually had much more weight than, say, an AIGA chapter deciding to throw a competition, because sometimes the politics of we need to make money on this kind of get in the way and keep people happy so they come back, get in the way of really the body of work. And this was really about the body of work. So fantastic stuff. Like always, I learn things by judging, because you're looking at other people's things and trying to apprehend how they think about it. And when I say I learn things, that means I appropriate or steal ideas that I've seen. So I appreciate that. And Chicago, I got to say, I'd love to live in Chicago for a while. That's, you know, I'm at a point in my life, I don't think I want to live in New York, but I would live in Chicago. And I have to say, I think I had the best culinary night of my life. When I visited. No, I'm serious, because there's a guy there, Kevin McConkie, said, hey, the night before we go back, come out and let's grab a drink. I said, sure. And we end up going to this place. Do you mind if I just launch in?
Oh, keep going, man.
So we go to this speakeasy. You know, it's a derelict building.
Any story with Kevin McConkie, it's going to be juicy, so I'm not going to stop yet.
It was ridiculous. It's like, okay, this is totally a speakeasy. I've always wanted to open a bar and have something like this. It looks like an abandoned building. You walk in, there's 30-foot velvet curtains. You walk through, and it's so dark. Your eyes can't adjust, and all of a sudden you're in the bar from The Shining. And, you know, it's this huge, like, 100-foot marble top thing, and you sit down, he knows the bartender, and they do these, like, Prohibition-style tinctures and little brown bottles, and they give you a miniature cocktail shaker, and they put it in an old champagne glass, and they give you the extra that didn't fit in your glass. And so we have some drinks there. We walk across the street. You probably know all these places. To this amazing taco place. There's like a line around the corner, and we walk up and we get pork belly tacos, like out of a window. It's like, this is insane. Then we go to Publican. I'm sure you know this place. And, you know, they have little stalls. It looks like a barn, but people are in the stalls instead of animals, which that happened later. They had house-made pork rinds, which, you know, I'm not proud to say I loved so much, and all this local beer. And then we went to the Girl and the Goat, and Kevin's company had done the branding for it. So even though there was a 6-month wait list, they go, "Oh, let's set up a table for you." It was,
wow.
It was insane. It was so great, and I'm going to blame all my extra weight on that night. So
just that one particular night in question. Kevin really showed you. Wow, I'm gonna have to give that guy a call. I haven't seen him in a while. I want that special treatment to her, right?
It was incredible.
Very cool. Hey, I want to remind the audience. We do take audience questions. I see a lot of familiar names in here, so you guys already know this. But for those of you watching the podcast, I'd like to remind you that you should come to these live chats, because if you've got a webcam, you can even get on camera with us and be part of the conversation. I really encourage that, guys. We'll start taking questions in just a little bit, so start submitting them now. It's a good idea. So that was the reason why we talked the first time. And the reason why we're talking today, not only because it's just nice to talk to you, Terry.
Ryan.
Wait. What's a friendly mustache? I don't know. These are all kind of scary. It's just nice to talk to you.
That's what we're doing.
Is the Design Family Reunion, which is coming up in, I believe, the end of September. So why don't you give us... Sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say it's happening Labor Day weekend. It is a totally grassroots, bootstrap thing. I think every designer worth his salt who got involved in the AIGA or has been to any conference has thought, wouldn't it be great if I got to see all these people and I didn't have to get up at 8 so I wouldn't have to miss that speaker? Matt Porter, who writes for CA and he's written for Step Inside, and how he's the design writer. He's a colleague and a friend, and he said, hey, I have this idea. Wouldn't it be great to get everybody together? And I said, I love it. I'm in. How do I help? And so we started putting together this idea. And so the 30th, 31st of August, and September 1st, we're having a 3-day, count them 3-day get-together of design folks from across the U.S. Someday we'll go international, but this is people getting together with all the best intentions. There's actually going to be some professional enrichment with Chris Sickles doing a stop-motion animation. We have some other things going on. Kevin McConkey, who I spoke of, is doing kind of a business charrette around new strategies for this new economy. There's going to be fantastic dinners every night. There's going to be outdoor activities, whatever you want to do, golf, sea kayak. We'll be going to the aquarium. There's going to be wine tours. So it's really kind of the crossroads of friendship and professional design. And I'm really excited about it. It looks like it's really going to be a great weekend. I should mention at this point, about 2 weeks after I committed to doing this, my wife announced that she's pregnant, and evidently had something to do with that. And this weekend that I'm going to at the end of the month, the day I return is her birthday, and when I return, she will be 9 months pregnant. So hats off and kudos to my wife for understanding and supporting me in this. That's huge. I don't know if I'm going to come home to a house with different locks or what, but it's going to be.
I would advise keeping your cell phone on you at all times throughout the weekend. Or who knows? Baby may show up, decide to show up early, and you'll get a surprise before you get to take off.
Okay, that's the first time I got tweeted about that idea. Thanks a lot.
Sounds like design hedonism from Andrew in the chat room. That's awesome. We've got some questions lined up. Good to see you guys. Ask some questions. Ask lots of questions. Yeah, you know what? The way you frame that in, like, there's going to be some design, professional development kind of thing, and some formal sit down, let's talk about serious stuff. I would make the argument that even that concept in general of let's get together and hang out for 3 days, let's do these other activities. I would make the argument that those are actually,
that's when it's going to happen.
Yeah, those activities are professional development also, just being around those people.
Absolutely. Well, it can't help but impact the way you think about things, and it also inspires just to be around certain people. And I think some of the best thought around design or strategies usually come when you're not saying, okay, we're gonna go figure out world peace on Tuesday. It's when you're doing other things. That's when the great design and strategy ideas come typically.
The difference between conversation and lecture, right? You're in a completely different frame of mind in a lecture where your mind can wander off and you're only half listening or half paying attention. But when you can bounce ideas off of each other, that's a completely different environment. And I think the way you learn and the way you absorb information completely changes.
Well, I would say that this is going to be a much more level playing field, even though some of the people that are attending may not have been speakers on the circuit. And I don't think that matters because they're all business people. One of the people we're hopeful to have attend, and if it's not this time, it'll be next time, is Bennett PG, who we all know is this energizer bunny of thought and new idea. And he told me that he actually tells his design students that in 5 years they will not have a job. Design as they know it will not exist. It'll be gone. And they're like, thanks a lot for letting me pay for this class. But he has an interesting take on that. I want all those kind of thoughts from articulate, interesting people who are making it work to be there, because it can't help but be a great conversation.
I just looked down in the chat room, and Neil Sittler is saying, "Congratulations, Terry and Laura. Yeah. That's awesome." I should mention we chatted earlier in the day, so I was already aware. I just realized that I didn't even bother to say, "Congrats, that's awesome. Good job, you're having a kid." Yeah, again, that's huge. Growing the family, that's amazing. But yeah, it's going to be an exciting week for you.
Oh my gosh, yeah. I'll just say that. I'm supposed to be planning a pig roast, Hawaiian style pig roast for that day, and we'll see if that actually happens. Because I don't have great faith I'll be able to pull it off.
Yeah. So knowing that the event exists, this is going to be the first year, and hopefully many years to come. How does one get invited or involved in this sort of event?
Thank you. It's not really formal. If you go to designfamilyreunion.com, anyone can come. We've on purpose made it very inexpensive. It's $300 to be there for 3 days. And what that does is really just cover food and stuff. It's a very atypical event, so we don't have Adobe and Nina and Appleton and all these people. We'd love to, but the fact is it's such a small group. I think we're going to have about 65 people, which I think is fantastic, because there's nothing worse than going to a party and thinking, I can't wait to see all these people, but realizing at the end of it, you didn't actually get to have a real conversation with a single person there. And that's why small number is going to be great. If you go to the site, Design Family Reunion, you can go to register and anybody can sign up. We're going to largely have people at the lodge at Asilomar, which is a conference center across the street from the Pacific Ocean. We have a couple houses just down the street that are rented, where we're going to host events like the stop motion animation, printmaking with just a remarkable artist, Chris Pavey. We're going to have the dinners there 2 nights in a row. One of the nights we're going out to dinner to a place called Restaurant 1833 in Monterey that's not only fantastic food, but it's also reported to be haunted, so I'm really excited about that. And the last night, of course, it's going to be Mexican fare with a mariachi band. It's really going to be a good time. And again, anyone can come. And you're attending, right, Ryan?
Say again?
You're attending, right?
I wish I was. I really would love to be able to come out. Hopefully it is something, it sounds like, man, it sounds like a blast. I really wish I could this year. Maybe in years to come, I definitely will make the effort to get out there. I need to get out of Chicago once in a while, man. I'm a little cooped up here.
Worst places to be.
I went back and I watched today, or listened to rather, while I was working diligently at my job, our talk from 2010. And there was something that you meant when I had you at the beginning go through, who you are, what you do, and why you do it. There was something you mentioned in there that I think I completely missed, and my jaw sort of dropped, and I really wanted to talk about it today. Is that you had mentioned that you had designed a bunch of logos for DC Comics?
Oh yeah.
And I don't know where my mind was when you said that the last time, but I want to hear a lot more about that and your interest in comics and the type of work that you're doing.
I don't do as much of that as I'd like to. The last things I did were it was last year. I've designed more than 40 logos for DC Comics, everything ranging from Vertigo to main titles. When they relaunched last year, the New 52, they kind of set the clock to 0 and rebooted all of their titles, 52 different titles for DC mainstream. our studio, and in fact, I did the logos myself for Hawkman, Firestorm, and All-Star Western, which, complete blast. With the relaunch, they revised the logo for Teen Titans, which was a mainstream logo I had done years and years ago that stood for years. I knew somebody who worked at DC. I visited them, visited the offices. I met everybody. Karen Berger, her husband. I mean, it's been a fantastic thing. About 10 years. I've even done, I think, 4 different covers for DC as well, and a few Elseworlds more covers. There was a hardbound book called Batman Detective 27. It was one of the Elseworlds titles, if you're familiar with that, where they take a familiar character and say, it's kind of like Marvel's What If. What if Bruce Wayne had never become Batman, but instead became part of the CIA, the Pinkertons, and he was the 27th detective in this agency. And so it was anachronistic. It was set back in time, and it was a beautiful book. And so the cover was, this is years and years ago, so it was like a 32-inch Photoshop illustration meant to look like old posters on the wall. And it was just fantastic. And for that, we typically do custom type. We hand draw type and build new stuff. And for that, I got to redesign the Batman bat and new logo type in an old style for Batman. It's so much fun. So much fun.
Now, in that Batman story, did he still have the tragedy of losing his parents when he was a kid?
Yes, he did. But it ended up being channeled into his being brought into this society, the secret society of detectives. And incidentally, for those who are non-geek, Batman was introduced in Detective Comics issue number 27, hence his being Detective number 27.
Wait, what's the appropriate mustache for this one? Let's go with this one. You, sir, have just earned your nerd badge.
Yes, I have. I was talking to one of my art directors at DC, and they were talking about this thing, and they just thought I was some design guy. And I asked them a question pertaining both to the artist and the storyline, and there was this pause, and I thought I lost them, and they said, "Are you there, Amy?" She goes, "Oh my God, you're a fanboy." And
you've been found out.
Yeah, I was found out. One of the great advents of my life. It's stopped since the relaunch. For a number of years, I got on some weird list, and DC Comics sent me about 100 comics a month.
Oh my goodness!
It's crazy. Yeah, hence I know way too much.
I think we're seeing this pop culture influence, of the comics, of nerd culture, and I think that crosses over really well into design. It's something that a lot of designers are into. A lot of personalities that end up in design inherently because of the type of work that's involved, really fit in well with the nerd culture. And I think it's just really cool to see how it's becoming mainstream. Nerd is cool. That you've got the whole. We were talking about hipster and people's views on that earlier today. And I just think, what are your views on how that's influenced pop culture in the last 5-10 years?
Well, look at what's been at the multiplex in the movies for the last 5 years. You can't escape superheroes. And, I think it's great. I mean, Zachary Levi, who was, he was on that show Chuck, where he was a nerd. And again, nerd points. There's a photo I found online where he's reading a comic called Why the Last Man, which I did the logo for. And, I had that photo. I'm just totally geeked out about it. He has a whole thing, I don't know, it's called Geek or Nerd Nation or something like that. And so at Comic-Con, he had this whole complex about nerd power. And I think what's going to happen, like with anything, if you studied art history, there was Renaissance, and then it flew into the Baroque and was way over here, and then you had realism. And right now we just have this amazing outpouring of stories around superheroes, which I think is great because in a lot of ways it's modern day mythos. Because I don't care where we are as humans, we're fueled by story, and some of these are fantastic stories, and some of them have things for us to learn, and some are just eye candy. But at some point, I think everybody's going to go, "Oh my God, I can't handle another comic book thing." And the pendulum may swing back, but I think if there's a void left there, it's always going to be about story. And in a lot of ways, things that are not the kind of spandex superhero thing, be it Fables or Why the Last Man, which are really about storytelling and talking about the human condition, things like that will fill the void.
I was going to ask you, it's funny you bring that up, I was going to ask you about that Last Man cover. I was actually just looking at that, and I thought it was interesting because of the variety and style that's represented all in that same layout. We've got this really modern sort of digital looking type thing, and then the illustration below it looks like it could have been on a movie poster in the 80s when there was this one guy, I can't remember his name right now, who did this slew of major popular movie posters in the 80s, and that illustration style is just so particular. I wanted to ask you about the combination of those two styles.
Well, I'm not responsible for the cover on that, and in fact, I really got to hand it to DC because you talked about worlds coming together, and we know as professional designers that now everybody thinks that we're supposed to be able to write, edit video, probably sing and design and print it ourselves. Those worlds are converging because the way things are made are converging because it's computers. So designers have a bigger influence in comics. And, if you look at comics from 10 years ago and today, you just look at the digital coloring. Oh, my God, it's a different world, right? And so those worlds are converging. And now I'm blathering, and I forgot what you were saying. Oh, the Why the Last Man cover.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's an interesting comic for you to bring up because it's not something that appeals to 10 to 15-year-old kids who are into Superman light stories and things like that. It's a story about the human condition. And for those of you who don't know, Why the Last Man is about a guy named Yorick Brown, and there's significance in the fact that his name starts with a Y because he is evidently the last man left on Earth when the strange epidemic just melted every other male on the earth from the inside out. They died. So the world is populated by women, and he's the last man. And so the logo itself is a Y, kind of with this form coming out. And it's it's my cheap take on all the great design from the 60s. And we turned in a number of versions of that, and thankfully they tended to use those. And I think it works because, well, you're right. It went from digital to this thing that was kind of 60s and maybe 70s and 80s movie poster illustration. I'm just going to say that there's nothing new under the sun, and the fact of the matter is, really, and of course I stole that from somewhere, I appreciate the mix and style, and as long as it works visually, it's there.
Yeah, completely. I mean, it was one of those moments where I saw it and I kind of, gave it the once over, and then my brain, there was a message saying, look further, look deeper. There's something going on here, and it was that contrast of the two styles that made me just, I had to scan more. I had to interpret and understand it more, and it was interesting to me too. I really, especially in like the idea of comic book and where modern books are today, and the artwork that you see that accompanies that.
Well, you're talking about something that I think is really important design-wise, that there has to be some sort of tension. Otherwise, it's not interesting, because there's so much stuff even when you look through great stuff, be it CA or HAL, some of it is good, and oh yeah, that's good, and a few things just melt your brain. You go, oh my God, I don't know how they did that. I wish I could do that. And then, because I think what you remember are the ends of the spectrum. I can't believe that got in this book, and then, oh my God, how did they do that? That's what you remember.
All the rest of it fades away. It's really easy to ride the wave of the modern aesthetic, what's accepted today, and churn out that stuff because it's easy to do because everybody's all using the same tools. But you're right. It's the stuff on either end of the spectrum that either pissed you off or made your day.
Yeah. Definitely.
There were some other pieces on there that I found interesting. The gold medal catering. I think it was an invite piece that I saw, and just the sort of
the gold medal piece. Yeah.
Yeah. It was just a really sort of sophisticated and simple but elegant, beautiful kind of piece. I just wanted to call that out and sort of hear the story behind that one.
Well, that actually, we got a call from somebody that we knew, and a gold medalist, a decathlete, was going to be at this party hosted by someone as a fundraiser for a nonprofit. And they needed this thing like in a couple days. And so we just found out some things about the person's background. They're from Hawaii. And the trick was to make something, as you said, elegant. So thanks for calling that out, because I was really pleased with that. And as you can tell, I totally forgot about it. But it's something that happened really quickly, and the trick was, how do you do something elegant and do it very inexpensively? So what we did is we used a duplex paper. It was this beautiful deep brown, and this we actually used linen. It's the first time I've used linen paper ever, and I was actually pleased with it. And it had natural white on the inside, so it was dark brown with natural white, and we used only gold ink. So we relied on pattern. And if I'm really honest, I think some of the pattern, even though it doesn't really borrow specifically from Japanese culture, it felt really Japanese because it had this delicate repetition of pattern that's set up where we put type or this little kind of central icon to really stand out. This is something I learned how to do when I worked for the Chamber of Commerce in Tacoma, Pierce County.
Bring that up because we talked about that last time also.
How do you make the most out of the cheapest route to get there? And these days, the cheapest route is just throw 4-color and have somebody that you send a file to on the web print it. But this needed to be done immediately, and it had to be something more. So that's all it was. Yeah, I'm really pleased with that piece.
And just to reference that conversation a little bit more, it was when you were working at that job at the Chamber of Commerce, at the time, 4-color was what was expensive, and 2-color is what was cheap. So you got really good at achieving interesting and deep levels of design using only 2 colors, which is an art that's sort of not lost, or not completely lost, but not very well understood right now.
No, it's not very well understood. And anybody who got to do this will go, oh yeah, stack screens. Instead of just using a color and tints, you take 2 tints and put them together and make a 3rd, 4th, or 5th color by the varying tints. And, you know, that doesn't really happen because the way things get designed today. It used to be you could just call it out. And, you know, there were specifiers for it. And I'm sure they still exist. I just don't know where they are. And today, the way people kind of class things up is to get somebody to letterpress it, which is beautiful. And when that really got popular, when I was judging shows, it seemed like everything that got letterpressed got in the show. And so as judges, we always have to step back and go, okay, is this really good design, or am I just like kind of getting wowed by the letterpress? And, you know, that's anything. You know, when it's funny that letterpress became the new technology that everyone loved. And, you know,
the hot thing.
Yeah, it's hot. I love it. This is a letterpress piece behind me from that show print. Let's see. It's Island of Lost Souls with a Panther Woman, which is a hand-carved woodcut that was done at Hatch. It's a restrike. And that actually is the first theatrical version of the Island of Dr. Moreau.
That's awesome. Sorry, I was just looking at our first question here that we're going to take. I want to note it's 8:35, guys. We go to till about 9 o'clock. Please submit questions. There's a red Ask a Question button on the side. And you can either type it in, or if you got a camera, you can get on camera with us and actually chat, which I completely invite you to do. You should take advantage of it. Neil Sittler wants to know, Terry likes to design/write to affect change. How do you define good change?
Something that adds up to more than $5.
I'll take that.
How do you define good change? You know, this is a really big question, Neil, and I know you know that. Somebody I know once said, you know, there's a difference between good and right, and the question is who is the arbiter of what is right. But sometimes, you know, someone gives me $1 million. I win the lottery. I get $1 million. Sure, that's good, but in the long run, it might ruin my life because everybody I've ever known, and including relatives I didn't know I had, might show up, and it just might be the worst thing for me. There's a ton of studies about that thing. But how do you define good change? Anybody who knows me, and Ryan, you know this, and Neil, you know this. I like finding ways for my business and what we do to support good causes. We were applying for our third SAPI grant. We were able to get one for A-Star for Autism, which does early autism intervention. We were given a second one for the S Foundation of White Center that works with youth in the arts and sports to channel all that youthful enthusiasm, so they're doing something other than getting into trouble and getting in gangs. And we're in the process of applying for one for something called the Herring Center at the University of Washington. I've long been a board member for something called LINK, which is a community outreach for AIGA Seattle. We're in our 18th year, or about ready to start our 18th year. We host workshops for high school students the third Saturday of every month with a guest artist, completely for free. We have a portfolio workshop for the seniors, again for free, where we shoot and develop their hard copy portfolio and an online for them. And each of the last 10 years, we've been lucky enough, because of the Coin Foundation, to be able to award more than $25,000 a year in scholarships.
Wow.
Another aside to Design Family Reunion, Patrick Coyne from Communication Arts is going to be at the Design Family Reunion. So then you can chat him up and see if you can slide into CA sideways. Oh, thanks for putting up the link for the LINK program. How do I define good change? Things that not just help people, but grant them tools and change attitudes so that the change for the better that they've experienced is something that might be carried on by other people, carried on by themselves, and I'm trying to avoid the word sustainable. LINK is at a point where a number of our volunteers used to be in the program as students, and I can't tell you how exciting that is that one, someday I may be able to take a break from this, and two, this is something that will perpetuate. So how do I define good change? Things that do more than just give a handout, but that I would say grant vision and hope and give people tools to do something that can make life better for more people as a whole. I'm just shucking and jiving, shooting from the hip.
No, the theme of change has been prominent, not only in design, but as on a national level also. I think we're seeing right now a time where smaller design groups, individual freelancers are feeling empowered because of our new communication tools we have available to be able to affect change, whereas 10, 15 years ago, there was a feeling of helplessness where how am I going to make a difference if I can't talk to a large number of people because it costs way too much. It's really exciting to hear that program, that LINK program exists, and in addition to all the other things that you mentioned prior to it, but to be able to reach out to the youth around you and show them that there are more things to life than than some of the bad things that they've been exposed to in their youth.
The LINK program is a great example for that. The founders, Glenn Mitsui and Paula Wong, thankfully called me early on to ask me if I'd like to be involved. And it started because Paula's daughter was a junior in high school, and she went to, the story is 5 funerals her junior year of friends who got shot in drive-bys. There was a dearth of money for art education. The program was flailing, barely alive, and so a group of us just started on Saturdays. We got access to the art classroom once a month, and just out of our pocket, we started buying art materials and asking friends and people that we knew, would you come into a calligraphy class? You do snowboard design. Can you do a project with that with kids? And AIGA National just pinged us because they want to do a case study on it now. I know that AIGA San Diego has early on used it as the LINK program as a model for their own LINK program. But it's been a great thing for me because, I talked about appropriating ideas at design shows. Well, I have to tell you, it's so cool to watch new volunteers at the Link program, because as designers, we have process. We succeed because we understand parameters. So if we understand parameters, we're safe in those. And when an artist comes in and tells 35 high school students, we're going to do three-dimensional sculptures today, you've never seen it, here's what we're doing, go. The high school students just tear into it, and all the designers going, oh my God, you have to do this in 2 hours or 2.5 hours? And it's actually inspiring to see these young people work without pretense and to work without fear of failure. Because as professionals, we know what works. And, you know, we think slower is better. And it's a great thing on a personal and kind of, I'll say, corporate level. It's really a cool thing.
That's amazing. It's, I mean, the idea that it exists and that it's carrying on, and that people who were involved at the beginning are now turning around and helping to perpetuate it. It's honestly, it's inspiring for me to hear that story and know that you're a part of it. No, just really, really cool. 8:42, guys. You've got about 18 minutes left in the chat. Try and ask some more questions before we get to the end of our hour, please. Neil, thanks for the question.
Yeah, thanks, Neil. I just want to say those 3 little words once again: Design Family Reunion. If you haven't, go check it out, designfamilyreunion.com. It promises to be one for the books.
And we do have that Twitter account, DesignChat Links, at DesignChat Links on Twitter, who throughout the show is tweeting out all the links to the subjects that we're talking about. So if you want to look back at that later, that's where it's sitting. There you go, designfamilyreunion.com.
Thank you.
That Patrick Coyne, seeing that name on the list, it's one of those moments it's similar to some of the moments I had in doing the show at the very beginning. Prior to starting to email people and reach out, I had very little connectivity to the design world at all. But I want to reiterate the idea that I'm learning and I'm continuing to learn while I do this show, that these people who are out there publishing and writing and participating in the design community, they're real people. They exist. They have their lives and their struggles, and there are these events like Design Family Reunion where you can connect with them, right? You can be in the same room with them and converse, and 9 times out of 10, they're because they're of the nature where they're already designing and sharing and writing, they'll share their thoughts with you. So this is the opportunity to be able to go to an event like that at all and see this guy and see all the people who are going to be there and just be around them and be able to converse and hang out for 3 days.
That person who's attending. You're mentioning something that's absolutely true. AIGA, being on the AIGA board, was an amazing thing for me. It changed my career because it's the very thing. It granted connection to hundreds, thousands of people I wouldn't have met otherwise. And if you go to an AIGA conference, which you should, and they're fantastic, or the HAL conference, and you should because they're great, there's still that strata. Oh, they're the speakers, and then there's everybody else, and people like Ryan with Fu Manchus. Here at the Design Family Reunion, I'm just going to call it Reunion, they're the person next to you making a gin and tonic at the honor bar. Exactly, Ryan. So there are no barriers there. They're just, everyone's just people, and it promises to be something, I think, special.
It does. It does, and hopefully a tradition that continues for many years to come. There were a couple other.
I mentioned Matt Porter again because he's the one who lit the fire on this, and he's working his tail off. So it's going to be.
And we couldn't get him. We couldn't convince him to come on camera tonight. We're going to have him be part of the show, and he was bashful, and he said he didn't want to come on camera. So I haven't seen him in the chat room. Have you yet?
No, I don't think he will.
He said he was going to come on and heckle you.
He'd probably get mad at me for something. I'm sure I've misspoken somehow.
The last time we talked, you had mentioned that it was a time where you had made a decision in career and life to shake things up a little bit. And I'm a little curious to hear about, because it has been 2 years, What else has been going on during this 2 years? It sounds like you deciding to participate and help make this design family reunion was also part of the fallout of that decision. So what else has your group been up to, and you personally?
I'd really like to say I no longer have a studio, and I'm the head French fry guy at McDonald's, but that would be a lie. The studio's smaller. You talked about smaller studios. I love the nimbleness of a small studio, and it actually, as the owner and the driver of it, actually grants me more leeway, which I love, especially now that I have a family. I knew this would happen. My focus is tightening because, like you, with a little one at home, I'm so impressed that you do this, Ryan, because it's difficult to squeeze out 20 minutes, 30 minutes to be able to do what you do on an ongoing basis.
Tell me about it.
Yeah, right? And so it's like one of the great gifts of getting older is you stop caring about stuff that doesn't matter. And a lot of it is stuff you didn't need to worry about. And in other things, you have to choose. I mean, where am I going to put my time? Where am I going to put my energy and effort? And I mentioned story. I don't want to talk about story because it seems everybody does these days. So instead of talking about story, I want to make stories. I've been working with a director and a DP. We've done a lot of really cool things. There's a international billion-dollar financial investment company called Russell Investments. Great company. We've been fortunate enough to do things from defining investment terms for them in the form of stop-motion animations. We've done like 10 of these. It's really strange. They released them with no fanfare. It was so much fun. I hand-built the puppets. I mean, got to buy a bandsaw, so excited. And I mean, our arms are made of Romex, the wire that runs through your walls. And we did this 10 stop-motion animation shorts. And if you go to the Russell Investments YouTube channel, you can see them. But you can also see two things that we did this year, which I'm totally excited about. We did Bigfoot and Loch Ness Monster videos for them.
Okay.
Yeah, crazy. And, in these things, I'm not only doing creative development, I'm writing a big chunk of it. We're producing these together. We're doing the edit and the sound with the 10 little pieces that we did. One of Prince's sound engineers from Paisley Park did all the music and the sound.
Oh, wow.
Oh my God, so cool. And I love being able to do things that take all the skills that you talked about as a designer, where you can pull from the 80s, the 70s, and put all of that together. Someone who was commenting said that everything is reference. Everything in design is reference. And, most good designers, I think, they're not just frustrated painters. They love media. They love furniture design. And this is a place where I get to bring all that stuff together under the guise of story. And we're going to be doing more work like that. I've been able to do some things that, working with photographers, I've put together a few kind of very complicated shoots for a small company, which is the opposite of mega hard. So think about that for a second, where we're doing location shoots with never mind.
I was like, what?
Down in San Diego, 5 locations in 3 days, 30 models, just crew of 25. Love doing that stuff. And I'm getting to write more. And the consulting that we do, because we're still doing branding and strategy consultation, developing a lot of web tools and web content. I want those things to be meaningful. So instead of just running through it and hiring somebody to get it done, I love it when I get to sit down at the table, cognitively at the same side of the table, and look squarely at a problem with our client and say, okay, I think this is what we should do. Somebody got it.
Looks like someone in the audience correctly guessed. Twitter user. Hey guys, if you haven't signed in the chat. That way you can ask questions. That's the only way you can do it. Otherwise, you're just watching passively. So please sign in, ask questions. We've got just a few more minutes left.
Hopefully this is good content for you, but so I'm going to continue with the answer. So I'm getting to spend more time in some arenas I didn't typically get to spend time in.
Yeah.
I'm talking to a publisher who wants me to develop kind of a written, designed, illustrated thing that would be a bi-weekly for his publishing company. I'm really excited about that, and I'm just about ready to launch a Kickstarter campaign for the second installment of the Mr. Crumbly book series. The first one was Mr. Crumbly Dreams a Tiger, which I wrote and illustrated, and I don't know why it took me so long. I'm writing the next one, which is Mr. Crumbly Eats the Moon. And,
I love it.
I'm going to launch it as a Kickstarter campaign, and I want to be able to. I think the best thing that we bring as a studio is kind of that weirdness. You talked about this really elegant design we did for something, and that kind of funky pop culture thing. That's what we do great, and I want to really put our weight down on those things.
That's awesome. As soon as that comes out, let me know, definitely, and we'll help get the word out for the Kickstarter campaign, because that sounds like a project that absolutely needs to happen. What would a moon taste like if you ate it?
Well, the first thing that comes to mind is probably a moon pie, but I'm guessing, you know, anything that might be dirt-like might not taste great. But
what would it taste like to Mr. Crumbly?
Well, I tell you what, why don't we just get you hooked up with Branson and the good people at Virgin? You can go to the moon and you can tell us.
I'll eat a spoonful of the moon. Just to say I did it. I'll try anything once.
Whoever's doing this is just kicking butt. I'm impressed.
Cool.
Who does that, man?
Say it again?
Who does that? All the links and stuff.
That is Andrew. I should mention, sometimes I forget because there's so many other things going on. We are broadcasting from Symbolic in West Dundee, Illinois, formerly known as Samata Mason. They've been Symbolic for a couple years now, and they put up the CUSP conference. And that is Andrew, who works here at Symbolic. He's one of their designer, developer, programmer, do-everything awesome kind of people who helps me every week put the show on and make sure the video recording works, and he's got lights set up and all this great stuff, and helps me project, and yeah, so big thanks to Andrew, and so yeah, all around awesome guy. That's right, here at Symbolic.
And he's blushing. Nicely done.
I'm an all-renaissance and dilettante. Cool. Well, with that, I think we're going to wrap it up. We'll come to the end of the night. Thank you, Terry, very much for coming on and sharing with us all about what you do in the Design Family Reunion. Guys, check that out. Tell your friends, designfamilyreunion.com.
I think we have like 6 spots left, so please, if you're interested, jump on it. They're
going fast. Sign up now.
They are. Yep.
Cool. Everybody in the chat room, throw your Twitter handles up there really quick so everybody can follow everybody. Let's make this community bigger. Tell all your friends about DesignChat, that they should be coming out and signing on Wednesday nights. Go to designchat.info/upcoming, and you will see that next week our guest is Evan Roper, who happens to be in the chat room, suggested by Mr. Mitch Goldstein, who's also in the chat room, or was earlier. I haven't seen him. But check him out, check out that site, and join us next week for our chat with him. And watch that link for more announcements of upcoming guests. Thank you again, Terry, and good night to everyone. We will talk to you soon.
Thank you.
Mustache.
Mustache.
Good night, everybody.